Hello, everyone, and welcome to Family Matters, Revit Customization and Parameterization Demystified. My name is Juliana, and I work in marketing here at MicroCAD. And today's presenter is Sandra, our applications specialist. And this webinar will explore practical techniques and best practices to help you tailor Revit to your specific project needs. Throughout the webinar, as usual, you can ask a question on the left-hand corner. You can ask Sandra to revisit a step or ask any questions. This is your time, and we want you to make the most of it. And in the upper left-hand corner, you will find links to our social media, website, and YouTube channel. And we also have our webinar registration site, so you can check out all the webinars we have there and register. And even if you cannot make it, you can get the on-demand recording if you register. So yeah, without further ado, I'll pass it on to Sandra. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, Juliana. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Hi, everybody. Let me share my screen and let me introduce myself. My name is Sandra Wogemuth. I am an applications engineer, a solution specialist at MicroCAD. Have been so for the past 4 or 5 years. I also have a background as a BIM-CAD manager with an engineering firm for almost 7 years. And I have been a Revit person since the year 2005. Absolutely Revit aficionado, and have been preaching the word of Revit for many, many years. Today we're going to be talking about Revit families. We're going to be talking about the different types of families that we have, the different types of parameters, and a whole bunch of other family-related subjects. As you all know, family matters in life. So, starting with this, the different kinds of families that you find in Revit, you have 3 different types of families. You have system families, you have loadable families, and you have in-place families. Systems families, they're predefined in Revit. They cannot be saved in external locations. They can be transferred from one project to another through the transfer project standards command. Most of them, they should be part of the templates. We here at MicroCAD, we are available to you for template discussions and a little bit of consultation on that. I still think that having a good template is very important for a company, and the most important part of that template is having your system families all set up. As examples for system families, you will find that your walls, roofs, floors, ceilings, railings, stairs are your architectural system families. You have duct, pipe, conduit, cable tray for your MEP needs. Level, grids, and viewports are also system families. Text, dimensions, and regions are also system families. So this is a whole bunch of family types that you have to start keeping in mind and keeping in the back of your head of what you need to create. Whatever is not a system family is a loadable family. Loadable families, they can be saved in a separate library. They have a different file extension. They are .rfa files. They can be found in the libraries that you get when you purchase Revit from Revit out of the box, or you can download nowadays a whole bunch of Revit families from manufacturer websites, or you can create them in-house. The last type of family that is available are in-place families. They are families that are created within a project environment. They should be created only if you really need a project-specific family, and that you need the actual project geometry of that project to create that family for that family to run. I have an issue with in-place families, and in general, I advise not to use them because they are only available in the project where they're created. And I mean, as you're going to see throughout the webinar today, creating families is involved, and there is a lot of things that you have to think about. So for me, these in-place families, stay away from them. So getting a little bit deeper into the subject, let me talk a little bit about system families. First of all, when you start a system family, you will always know that you are dealing with a system family, because when you go to the type properties of a system family, it will say system family. You can create new system families by choosing to duplicate an existing system family and then modifying the types within the system families. Before you start the project, you should determine what system families you're going to need, how they have to be created, what their parameters have to be. And then, I mean, best workflow is if you find the system family that approximates the system family that you actually need. Start from that one and then duplicate that system family and make the appropriate changes. There is no need to reinventing the wheel every time. To edit system families, let me show you this quick dialog box. I have examples of the type properties of a wall system family. And then you have this line in the wall system family that says the structure. And you have this edit button. And when you click on that edit button, you get this dialog box that allows you to create the assembly of the wall that you're going to need. And then you can create all the layers that are going to make that wall assembly. Similar to that, you have for the ducts, you have the routing preferences. Instead of the structure, it says routing preferences. You have the similar edit button. And then you have a dialog box that will allow you to define your elbows and your T's and your junctions and your caps and everything that you need for the ducts. Similar to that, you have the pipe families here. Pipe families are very cool because you can narrow down. So the more complex your projects go, the higher your LOD, the more you can define in your pipe system family the different junctions and the different elbows that you need. And this can be, this dialog box can be made very accurate to make it fit industry standards at a very high level of detail. The conduits and cable tray families are a little bit simpler. You can have all those parameters, all those settings set up straight away in the type properties dialog box. Moving on to loadable families, and I'm going to concentrate today a little bit more onto loadable families. I'm going to leave the subject of system families here a little bit on a cliffhanger because I want to concentrate on loadable families. First of all, they are, as I mentioned before, they are separate files. They have a file extension that is .rfa. They can come from the libraries that are provided by Revit out of the box, or they can come from your own company's library, depending on if you have already created your own library, if you have family creator, if you have acquired families on the World Wide Web, wherever you have them, whatever you find a family that works for you, save it and save it properly. Create your company's libraries organized in an organized fashion. If you're looking for content that you get from Revit out of the box, in the Revit interface itself, in the Insert tab, you need to go here to this Load Autodesk Family. As of 2022, the content libraries are not being installed in your computer to save C drive space in your own computers. Now they're saved in this cloud location. And this is where you find all the families that you get from Revit out of the box. I advise everybody before going and acquiring families on the web all over the place, investigate this library. Make this library your own. It is your own. It's like your own, like when you were little and they would give you this box of colors. Try them out, check them out, and if you need to create your own family, for me, the starting point should be any of these families that you get from Revit out of the box, and then develop from there. Why? Because these families, they're proved and tested. They work. We know they work. So with little variations, you can make them your own. Now, if you're going to create your own families, start with the templates, the templates that Revit gives you by default. You have a whole bunch of templates. Starting a family with the appropriate template will give you, to begin with, a whole bunch of parameters and properties of that family and behaviors of that family that will, I mean, it's going to save you time and it's going to make your life so much easier. This is a short example of all the family templates that you have. Notice that you have a folder with annotation families. And when I'm talking about annotation families, I'm talking about all the tags that you're going to use. Those are all annotation families. Conceptual mass, it's also loadable families. And your title blocks are all loadable families. Sorry. When you start a family, it will open up in the following interface. This is the family editor. In the family editor, it looks like a watered down version of Revit, right? You have your well-known Revit interface where you can create shapes, you can insert stuff, you can annotate, view, and whatever else not you can do. You have a project browser. Notice that in the project browser and the family editor, you have fewer items than what you have in the Revit interface itself. This is a family that I started from the generic model template. It has by default these two reference planes. This is called the center front back, and this is the center left right reference plane. And then when you start creating families, and this is something that is absolutely unavoidable when we're talking about families, is that we need to talk about parameters. So let me segue a little bit into a discussion about parameters, because only by understanding parameters will you be able to completely understand the creation of families. So when I talk about parameters, we're going to be talking about the existence in Revit of three types of parameters. You have project parameters, you have shared parameters, and you have global parameters. The last one, global parameters, they live inside the project and they just drive geometry. The other two parameters, they affect families. So project parameters, when you create a project parameter, they need to be assigned to a specific category. They have a huge advantage, project parameters, and it is that any family that you bring from the category that that project parameter was assigned to, whenever you bring that family into your project, that family will inherit, will get the parameters that are set as project parameters. Project parameters, they can be either type parameters or instance parameters. You can also set as project parameters, you can set a shared parameters. So that is the next big can of worms when we're talking about shared parameters. Different from project parameters, shared parameters live as a TXT file outside of your project. Project parameters, they cannot appear in schedules or tags. And if you need a parameter that you want to use as a label in a tag or that you want in a schedule, you will need to have a shared parameter. And shared parameters, they can be, every project will have a TXT file that appends those shared parameter files. And then you can have as many shared parameters as you want. You can group them in, can organize them in groups. And then in every group, you can have whatever parameters you want. There are different properties for shared parameters. So when I'm talking about parameters themselves, parameter properties, and I'm going to be talking about parameters that you create within a family, they're family parameters. As I said before, they can be either type parameters or instance parameters. Type parameters are going to define different types within a family. Instance parameters are going to define different properties within the instance of the same family. Then for either type of instance parameters, family parameters, you can have different disciplines for the type parameters. So you have parameters that are under the common discipline, and then you have parameters that are specific for electrical, energy, HVAC, infrastructure, piping, or structural. And then you can group the parameters, and when we say group parameter under, this location says where that parameter is going to be located in your type properties dialog box. So here you have a little bit of an example of common parameters. You will find that you have parameters like length, text, integers, and angle, area, cost for area. You have here at the end a yes, no parameter. This is like a switch where you can turn things on and off. So learning what these parameters do is very important when you're creating parameters. You have parameters that are specific for piping, for HVAC, or for the electrical industry. And then when you're actually editing a family and creating a family, now that you already kind of get a glimpse of what parameters are, you can go and start creating a family. And then best practices when you're going to create the family, and for me, before I go to create the family, there is a whole bunch of questions that I ask myself. The first question that I ask myself is, how intelligent or how parametric do I need my family to be? And again, parameters, intelligence, do I need my family to stretch? Do I have a family that has the same geometry, but I need different types of that same geometry? All those things, I need to have them very clear in my head before I go ahead and start creating a family. And then if I need a family that I want to stretch in which direction, a family that is going to have different types by different sizes, the first thing that I need to do is create a skeleton of reference planes. And then create a dimensions that control the locations of those reference planes. And I can select those dimensions and make them into a label, Making a label out of a dimension is creating a parameter, and it's going to be a length parameter when it's made out of the dimension. And as you can see, I created here two, I mean, they're not created when I did the screenshot. I was creating the width parameter, and then I created the depth parameter. As you can see here on this screenshot here. And then once you have those parameters placed, there is something that you have to do in the family editor, which is called flex your geometry, meaning change these values and make sure that the reference planes, they move in the way you would like your family to change. Okay, that is called flexing the family. After you have your skeleton of reference planes, you will start creating geometry by creating extrusions or revolves or whatever other shape that you need to create. And you will constrain, and this is what these blue logs show here, you're going to constrain your geometry to the reference planes. And then guess what? You're going to flex the geometry again, and you're going to make sure that that extrusion that you created or whatever shape you created, if you flex the family, that element moves too. That is what makes that family parametric and intelligent and flexible. Last, and as I told you, this is just the beginning of a series of webinars that we're going to do regarding families. When you are creating, for example, MEP families, very important in the family editor to use the MEP connectors. And the MEP connectors is what makes those families to be MEP families. And you have electrical connectors or duct connectors or pipe connectors or cable tray. And here you have an example of what those connectors can bring in terms of their properties. So before I reach the end of this presentation, you want to keep this in mind. Before you begin to create a family, determine, first of all, as I said before, if you can use existing families or if you need to create one from scratch. Very few families need to be created from scratch. Grab from that Autodesk library and start manipulating those families. Ask us. We are here to help you create those families. We're here to help you learn this skill of family creation. Plan and define your criteria before you start creating a family. Define if you want to have, I mean, for example, receptacles, the electrical trade. Very similar geometry for a whole bunch of different receptacles. So it makes sense to create one receptacle family with a whole bunch of types. Okay, keep that in mind. You don't want to have a huge family library. You want to be clever about this. And the more you can bunch up similar geometry and then create different types of the similar geometry, the more organized your family library is going to be. The other thing is families can be created out of other family elements. For example, receptacles, they have a generic annotation attached to them so that they can have different symbols. Okay, those are called nested families. You can create a window made out of 3 different window types. Those are nested families. And then you can define if those windows are shared, therefore they can be scheduled separate from the main family, and then you can tag and schedule them individually. Okay. And with that said, I'm going to open up the floor for questions.
Thank you, Sandra, for that wonderful presentation. And yeah, you can ask a question on the left-hand corner, and I will start with the first question here. Okay, so What is your opinion about families one finds on the internet?
Hmm. Cool question. That is a very cool question. Um, you have to go to, I mean, you got to be careful, man, because there are families that you find in the internet that are overly complex. So I would try to find my families in reputable places. I mean, I advise the Autodesk out of the box library that I showed you as your first place for family creation, and then us in MicroCAD as your trusted advisors, as consultants to help you create your families.
Thank you. Second question. How do you create a scale 2D symbol for families?
Um, you can create it if okay. There is two ways. For example, the receptacle families. They have appended to them a nested family that is a generic annotation. But the generic annotation, because it is an annotation, it is going to behave the same as text. When you change the scale, it's going to change. If you want that 2D symbol to be true to scale, then instead of creating a generic annotation, starting from a generic annotation, you want to start from a detail item template, and that is scaled to the that way you create a scaled 2D representation, like a block in AutoCAD.
Thank you. And next question. What is the best file setup convention to setting up a family directory for an architecture and MEP and structural engineering firm?
Um, mm, that is a very good question. I would create a folder structure separate for architecture, and then another one for my MEP components, and then another one for my structural components. And then I would take a look at the Autodesk library. I mean, that is the way I have set up my families. I guess I've been with Autodesk with the software for way too long, and then I'm a little bit biased in that sense. But I would organize them by categories, right? So all your doors in one location, all your windows in one location, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank
I
you.
mean, it.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, separate them by categories: air terminals, mechanical equipment. In the mechanical equipment folder, I would put a folder for rooftop units and another folder for VAV boxes, another folder for dampers, controllers, and structural folder for beams, trusses, etc. Right? It's just a matter of creating a system and sticking to it. Yeah, go on.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Next question is, what is your view on composite families that have multiple categories?
Um, I have created a bunch of them, especially for the electrical industry. For example, in all my receptacles, they are built out of. They're made out as a electrical fixture family, out of an electrical fixture family template. But then I have nested families, a whole bunch of generic annotations for the different symbols. And that way, with one receptacle family, I can cover all my standard duplex, my quads, my emergencies, the owner TVs, whatever else not that I need in terms of receptacles. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Let us know in the comments if that answers your question. And the next question, I don't see a question mark, but I guess it's a question. It says, what's the easiest way to create a legend sheet from all the symbols slash families in the drawing?
MicroCAD has an add-on to Revit that is called the MicroCAD Productivity Tools that creates your legends automatically by category. And to me, that would be the quickest way. Because the other way, you have to go on foot with the legend component command in the legend view and start creating one by one. So, I mean, to do all the legend with all the families that they have in a model, I would use the MicroCAD legend component tool.
Next question. Could I hire you to help me do this? I could use a couple hours of help. Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for. That is part of the reasons why I am here today, is to introduce myself to you and to offer my services to help you create the families that you need, and to help you standardize all those libraries and all that you might need for the future development of your projects. Yes.
Thank you, Sandra. I don't know if you have our contact information in your PowerPoint, or maybe I can share it.
Yes, let me move to my next slide. Here you have all our phone numbers.
That is correct, and also my contact information down below. I would like to remind you while we get any questions, because I don't see any more. So while we wait for that, I want to remind you we have a webinar, a special one that we do like every quarter. The Inventor User Group, this is a manufacturing webinar, we'll have on March 21st. And on March 27th, we'll have one product, many tools, design harmony with Autodesk PDM collection. And on March 28th, we'll have minimize risk and boost productivity with cloud collaboration. So yeah, I don't see any more questions. So Sandra, thank you so much for that presentation. That was great. Thank you everyone for attending, for getting into this webinar, taking the time. We appreciate that. And yeah, please, I recommend you to check out our like a webinar registration page. You have, I think it's on the right hand. So you can check out our future webinars, and again, you can just register, and if you cannot make it, you will get the on-demand recording. Okay, I have another question here before I say goodbye. Does MicroCAD have a plugin that works with conduits? For example, pushing a custom parameter through a publishing to a schedule.
No, we don't have a parameter pusher. That's the short answer. You can create parameters that will be added, I mean, as project parameters, but project parameters don't get scheduled. So if they're shared parameters, at this point, we don't have that tool, but it might be in the pipeline to get developed.
Thank you. And I don't know if you have any more to add, Sandra, or if we can wrap it up.
Just thank you everybody for attending our webinar today. Remember that we are here at MicroCAD we're here to help you out and we are available to create families for you or to teach you how to do all these tasks. And thank you for attending our webinar today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.